to Moments with Marianne. I'm so delighted we're spending this time here today. We have a very inspiring show coming right up with special guest Brandon Webb, and he's here today to share with us his new book, Mastering Fear, a Navy SEAL's Guide. Now, Brandon is a former U.S. Navy SEAL sniper, New York Times bestselling author, experimental aircraft pilot, and entrepreneur. He founded the Hurricane Group, a U.S.-based media and e-commerce company focused on outdoor, military entertainment, news, and clubs. As a New York Times bestselling author, Brandon has been featured in international media as a military and special ops subject matter expert. He has been a contributor on ABC's Good Morning America, NBC's Today Show, Fox News, CNN, the BBC, SiriusXM Media, MSNBC, and the New York Times. So let's welcome to the show, Brandon Webb.
Thanks, Marianne. Always good to be on.
Hey, it's always such a pleasure to spend time with you. Very excited about this new book. My goodness, it is a game changer.
Thanks. It's a special book to me because, as you know, it was inspired by teaching one of my closest friends how to swim and overcome his fear of the water. And, that was Kamal Ravikant, who's an amazing guy, kind of a Silicon Valley celebrity. And I couldn't believe that when we became really good friends that he didn't know how to swim. And I said, just give me a week and I'll teach you. And he's like, I've had Olympic swimmers try and teach me. He's like, I have this fear of the water. And I said, just give me a week. So we met in New York at my athletic club, 1 hour every morning, Monday through Friday. And Monday, this was a guy that would get into the pool on the ladder, gripping this ladder as he's entering the water, pushing off and grabbing the side of the pool with I could see the fear in his eyes. And I was like, okay, I've got my work cut out for me, but I knew I had to take small steps with him. And by Friday, he jumped in to the pool, cannonballed into the pool, and sunk himself to the bottom 10 feet down, held his breath for half a minute, and then pushed back up. And after that Friday lesson, we were taking the subway back to Flatiron, where we both live, and he said, you changed my life. You've got to write a book about this. And so that was the inspiration behind Mastering Fear, was to show real world examples of my own life, but other friends that I have, and show people that everybody deals with fear. Even a Navy SEAL, right? I live with fear daily, like everybody else. And the point is, it's how we deal with fear on a daily basis is what really determines whether or not we have the life that we want to have.
Well, I'm so glad that you shared that story, and I love hearing it because you did something different with him than any of his other coaches had done, and you addressed the fear in a different way. The others were trying to teach him swimming techniques, and you were talking about everything in between, the mind game that he was playing in regards to the water.
Yeah, it's a difference between really understanding what's in someone's head or not. And one of the best things I've taken away from my time and career as a Navy SEAL was my last part of my career I spent as a sniper instructor and course manager, working with some of the best coaches in the world when we were redeveloping our own program. And I just really latched on to positive psychology and the mental game because I've seen how effective it was training snipers, and also hearing from my friend Lanny Basham, who's a gold medalist and one of the real pioneers of positive psychology before it was a thing, because back in the 70s it wasn't. A lot of the psychologists would just focus on how to make you okay with being second best. That was Lanny's experience when he won the silver medal. He's like, what? He realized that he had lost his mental game and came back and went to all these sports psychologists, and they're like, oh, we're just going to make you okay with being second place. He's like, that's not what I want. He's like, I want to win the gold. So he went and spent a year surveying all these Olympic gold medalists and found that there was these fundamental traits they all shared. And then he put it into a program for himself and won the gold medal in Montreal, I think in 76, and then had a huge impact on me when we used him as a consultant for the sniper training in the SEAL community. And then I've taken that with me in business, as a parent, and when I realized that Kamal had this fear of water, I knew I can't just throw him into the pool and expect him to swim or start, just hammering away on stroke technique. I had to take small steps to kind of build his confidence and slowly confront in small steps the fear he had of the water. And as I, over time, build confidence, and you could see, like, 1 week is not a very long time. But, I think I took the right approach, and that was what Kamal told me. It's like, nobody has ever done that with me before. And he's not going to win any swim races, but he can survive in the water now. And that, to me, that's the best gift I could ever give anybody. And I remember a month ago, he called me. He was on some type of retreat in Bali, and he's like, I'm sitting in the jungle in a villa doing cannonballs in the pool every morning, just so grateful for your friendship and for you teaching me how to swim. Because this is a guy that would be nervous getting invited to like a house party in the Hamptons where there's swimming involved, and now he's fine with it.
What's interesting is you've taken something that probably comes naturally to you. I mean, when you talk about that, even you get afraid. I mean, most people know you as a pretty badass kind of guy. You're. I mean,
I had badass parents. I had a badass mom who always letting me kind of explore and do some really cool things. Like I talk about this story in the book. My mom is the one that pushed me to take this job as a 12-year-old kid on a scuba diving boat. This boat out of Ventura Harbor in California would take sport divers out to the islands on 2-3 day trips. And she said, hey, they need a kid for the summer to help out and just work for tips, and they'll teach you how to dive. And so I did it, and by 13, I remember I was certified, had a handful of dives under my belt. But one of my scariest childhood memories was getting woken up at 2 a.m. By Captain Mike. We all the crew slept in the top of the boat called the wheelhouse with our bunks. And Captain Mike woke me up out of a dead sleep, and he says, hey, the anchor's stuck, and we have to move to calmer water so the passengers can sleep. Get your wetsuit on. You're going to go down and dive on the anchor. And I had done that in the daytime, but we were at this island that was a seal habitat. And if you ever watch Shark Week on Discovery Channel, you know what eats sea lions, great white sharks. And this Captain Mike was crazy. He actually went on a great white shark hunt a couple months earlier at this same spot, like chummed for great white sharks, and was going to go spear one. He's just a crazy, crazy bastard. And I was scared to death. I'm like, I'm not going down there. It's dark. There's sharks. But I did it. I remember just going, okay, I can't let these guys down. I remember jumping off the bow of the boat with my dive light, swimming with my dive light in one hand and the anchor chain in the other as fast as I could, 50 feet down to the bottom. And I'm watching these sea lions zip by me because you can see the bioluminescence. And I was just like, oh, God, this is crazy. But I did it. And then, 15 minutes later, I got out of the water, and it was like, okay, it wasn't as bad as I made up in my head. And I think that's a good example for people also, is we have a habit of generally making up this story about fear whether it's public speaking, flying, and we make it much worse than it is. And that's a lesson learned too. And again, back to my parents and my mom, I'm just really grateful that I had, parents that were adventurous and would let me and encouraged me to do things like take a job like that as a 12-year-old kid.
That's pretty adventurous, and hey, way to go, Mom, because it's good for people to go out and explore. But my goodness, the life lessons you learn from that, and what you're teaching people, and how to overcome their fear with mastering fear, is just astonishing.
Yeah, I mean it's just something that this book is special to me because I think it's really going to help a lot of people. And I learned a ton writing the book myself because I said, okay, I had to really, I used to be a master training specialist in the military and develop curriculum. And I essentially had to do that with mastering fear. I had to look at, okay, what are the steps and the system that I can put in place so people can use that system to deal with their fear, whether it's a small fear or a big fear. Already I've gotten a ton of people messaging me on Instagram thanking me because there's a story I tell in the book that I love the story. It's about jungle training in the military, and we used to do jungle training in the Philippines. I was a SEAL. SEAL Team 3, we were trained in desert warfare, but I had a friend tell me the story about his time in jungle training, and they teach you to capture monkeys for survival. You eat the monkeys. Sorry for any vegans that are listening. But in a survival situation, everything becomes food.
Yeah.
And they dig a hole in the ground. They put sticks over the hole, and they put a coconut in the hole. And the monkeys see the coconut, they reach their hand in, they grab the coconut, and they try to take the hand out, but the sticks won't let the monkey's fist in the coconut come out of the hole. All they have to do is let go of the coconut, and they can go walk away. But the monkeys just won't let go. They're holding onto this gripping onto this coconut. And, the survival instructors come along and bonk them in the head, and then there's food for the night. The correlation is we all have our own version of the coconut, and we have to let go the coconut because a lot of times when you look at it as a coconut as fear, whether it's a bad relationship, a career that you're stuck in, a fear that's really holding you back in your life, you have to figure out what that is and let it go. And we all have the power to do that. We just have to make the decision, which I talk about in the book as well, to really decide to do something about it.
Yeah, it's so important because people do hold on. I mean, I've done it. I mean, there are things I've been afraid of, but it's been interesting. Your book really I really can see where your book helps a lot of people because there are parts of it that I was reading, and it's a book that you can reread and you grasp more information as you go. But it's helped me in my life, and so I'm looking at this just, daily fear, and you talk about just the inner dialogue of fear. Is it really possible to control that? I mean, because it's almost like when we ask this kind of question, and you've got the information in your book and how to do that. But when we ask you this kind of question, I mean, again, you're this, Navy SEAL badass guy, and we're just like these mere mortals that are trying to pick it up,
Yeah, it's why I really wanted to share a lot of my personal stories and be vulnerable, because I talk about the book getting out of the Navy. I was larger than life. Like, I had being a Navy SEAL in the military is you're kind of on, you've kind of made it in a lot of senses. But when you get out in the regular world and you're like, okay, aside from maybe a handshake and some guy buying you a beer at a bar, that's about all it's worth. And so, I got into my first business and learned a ton, but 3.5 years later, lost everything. and then went through a divorce, which, it was as good as divorces get. I have a great relationship with my kid's mom, but it was still tough. Like, I went from being this Navy SEAL and running the top sniper course in the world to losing my entire life savings and owing people money. All of a sudden sitting in a house by myself, having to have conversations with the neighbors on where's your family. It was a really tough period, and then I had a fear of starting over. Like, what do I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. My parents were entrepreneurs, and I said, okay, I can be scared, or I can really turn this into a positive and look at, what are the lessons learned in this, and how do I use that to learn from and start my next business, which is what I did. But, I'm not going to lie and tell people I was just fearless, because I had my own issues, the little voice that creeps into our head, which I talk about in Mastering Fear also. Like, how do we push that voice out and replace it with a positive voice? And that's something they call self-talk, and I learned that from Lanny Basham, the gold medalist. But the positive self-talk versus negative self-talk, we're really our own worst enemies sometimes when it comes to that stuff. And also, one of the things that I learned was when we were teaching sniper students, Lanny said, look, you don't have to point out all the mistakes, because when somebody is a beginner, they don't know what they're doing wrong, and you pointing out all the mistakes, you're programming them for failure. He's like, just tell them what to do correctly. And so you translate that into your own head, and a lot of times we have to take that same approach and start talking to ourselves differently. So when I hear people say, I'm not good at math, I'm an average golfer, I'm not good at public speaking, they're making this self-decoration and putting this self-limiting factor on themselves. And, I talk about Mastering Fear, my friend James Altucher, who knew he had an issue public speaking, and he said, you know what, I'm going to go take stand-up comedy lessons. And this guy, I've spoken to hundreds of people before, and I get the fear of public speaking and how terrifying it could be. But I can't imagine this guy James going in a comedy club in New York City and having the guts to get up there and just take the audience, because that's a hostile environment.
Yeah, they're pretty brutal.
Yeah. But here's the guy that, identified this fear he had and made a conscious decision to overcome it. I share a story like Betsy Morgan, who's a good friend of mine. She was, I think, took over the CEO role from Arianna Huffington. She was the first kind of professional CEO at Huffington Post. She had an amazing career at CBS as a rising star, and she left CBS to go take this job at Huffington Post. Les Moonves, the guy in charge of all of CBS, pulled her into his office, and he's like, I can't believe you're doing this. Who the hell is going to read the news on the internet? And now look at where we're at, right? So it's just, I try and feature a lot of real successful people in a variety of careers, and show people, look, we all deal with fear. It's this human. It's part of our human makeup. And people that you would see, wow, like astronaut Scott Kelly, who I talk about in the book, was afraid, as a Navy test pilot, was afraid that he wasn't good enough to apply for NASA. So it just shows everyone that, hey, look, we're all in this life together. But the system I made, I really hope will help a lot of people.
It's a very good system. And again, like I said, it's helped me. In your book, you talk about how important it is that we ask for what it is that we want. And I'd love for you to kind of expand on that a little bit, because I think a lot of times people get into this place where they don't even think about doing that.
Yeah, that's an important point that you bring up. And it was, when I was writing the book, I didn't know whether to put that in the front or the back of the book. And it ended up kind of being in the back because I think it's so important. And many books have been written about this subject, right? And it's like, what is the why? Like, what are you doing this for? It's a simple but important question, and I don't think a lot of people spend enough time thinking about it. I remember I had a young man in New York message me the other day about, he said, I've applied for the Navy, I want to be a SEAL, and then I just got this job offer, a promotion. He's like, I don't know what to do. And I was like, wait a minute. I can't possibly throw myself into your situation and try and trace back your 24 years of life and experience and make that decision for you. Like, you have to figure out like the why and what you want to do in your life. And only you can answer that question. And you have to dig deep. It's not easy all the time, but you have to figure out what you want to do in life and what you want to get out of it, and then make the decision for yourself. Nobody can make it for you. Because, I mean, I see so many times I've people that let their parents determine what career they end up in. I knew a doctor in New York City. I mean, imagine the years and hard work it takes to become a doctor in America, and then realize 2 years on the job that you hate what you do. Like, that's, I mean, what a terrible waste of time. And so it's something, it's an important subject, and I don't think a lot of people spend enough time thinking about, especially when it comes to career. A lot of these things that sometimes fear is being an anchor and holding us back. So that's why I really talked about it, because it's like I see so many young people drifting, and they just didn't spend enough time thinking about what they want in the long term. And it will change too. Like, I've changed careers twice. I knew I wanted to be a Navy SEAL. After that wasn't fun anymore, I decided to be an entrepreneur. So it's, life changes, but I think thinking about what you want in the future, whether it's a relationship, career, is super important. And then you can kind of identify the fears that are getting in the way. But I hope that answers your question.
Oh, it definitely does. And it's interesting, and I'm so glad that we're taking the time to talk about this. And I think a lot of people, when they look at the book, they go, God, Navy SEALs guide, that's great, And so it helps them to also understand that these are tangible processes that they can put into their life today that anyone can use. Children, adults, coworkers. I mean, if I'm managing a large team of salespeople, I would have all of them read this book. I think it's relatable to everybody.
Thanks. I'm pushing the publisher for us to do a young adult version of this, because as a father to 3 amazing kids, and I've seen the results of, I've put this practice into place with my own parenting, and to have my 14-year-old daughter Olivia make a video for Father's Day, and I mean, I've watched this thing 20 times and cry every time, but she's just like, thank you for teaching us, to confront our fears and take risks. And she's an amazing, amazing young lady. I mean, I taught her how to roll my plane upside down do an aileron roll when she was 12. And it's just, I couldn't ask for anything more. But I think the kids especially will benefit from this, because, you and I both, we've been around long enough to know that there's so many people project their own insecurity and fear on others. And even I've been around teachers and coaches, and they don't even realize they're doing it, but they're projecting it onto these young kids. And I just, I have conversations with my own kids about, look, you really have to, decide, we work on goals every year. I say, you got to figure out what you want to do and realize that, some people are going to say certain things, and you've got to just believe in yourself and don't pay attention to the kind of negative inputs. It's going to come. It's just natural. It's like it's part of life, but you really can't let it, determine your fate. Like only you inside have the ability to make these decisions for yourself. And so I really want to release a young adult version of Mastering Fear, because I think it's going to help a lot of young kids, especially in today's world where they're so connected on social media, and there's a lot of good things that come out of that, but there's also a lot of bullying and negativity on the internet and social media. Yeah. That I think a book like this would really, prepare kids to kind of deal with life.
I mean, could you imagine, generations of children having these life skills? I mean, I think they should do it without a doubt. I mean, it's an amazing thing to learn, because, we're teaching you, and our discussion here, you're teaching adults how to master their fear with your book, and in simple steps to go ahead and do that. Well, and so, Brandon, if people are looking to connect with you and learning more about the book, where they can purchase it and, be part of your community, where could they go?
They can go to my personal website is brandontylerwebb.com, and I'm on Instagram at Brandon T as in Tyler Webb, and I'm pretty active on Instagram. I enjoy Instagram. I have a lot of fun with it, and I don't think I have one non-return direct message. So I like engaging with people that have read the book. But that's where they can find me. I'm happy to, like I said, if people want to reach out to me on Instagram. I love hearing the stories and kind of trading stories on there as well.
Oh, that's a fabulous place to connect. I know I like following your Instagram. I'm also connected with you on social media, and I highly suggest that our listeners do the same. Brandon, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
Of course, anytime, Marianne. It's always a pleasure.
Well, thank you again, Brandon. I so appreciate not only all the service you've done for our country, but of course being able to spend this time with you and to talk about your new book, Mastering Fear, a Navy SEAL's Guide. Again, you can pick up Brandon's book at Barnes & Noble, Amazon, all major retailers, and of course, indie bookstores. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I would like to thank everyone for tuning in. You've been listening to Moments with Marianne. And remember, make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Moments with Marianne airs every Thursday, Friday, and Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Mountain Time. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.